All right. Hey, everyone. Happy Monday. Thanks for joining me today. And let's give a thanks and shout out to Brightbod. They're a great company that allows people with multiple disorders and diseases to connect with each other and record videos for the masses. And the key here is you are going to record a video of a question that you might have, and somebody with the experience and knowledge will also record a video to answer your question. So go to brightbot.com and ask as many questions as you want to, and we'll have plenty of people coming there to answer them for you as well. My name is Janie Angeli. I am a cancer survivor. I am not a doctor. So all the information that I have is solely based on experience and my own research. So today we're going to kind of get to the basics and talk about how cancer has changed my life. And there's a lot. My life is completely different than it was 4 years ago. So solely, it's been quite the experience. Overall, I would say it has been a very, very good experience. There have been some negative aspects, but overall, it's been something to learn from and live by. And that's kind of how I try to live my life, is learn from experiences and improve my life from there on out. Some of the negative aspects that I've had from going through this are things such as having PTSD afterwards, and not feeling well, and things of that nature. But overall, the key thing to know is that it's not over when chemotherapy or radiation ends. It is a continual process for years down the road. I have been talking and dealing with this now for 4 years, so it's not something that is necessarily said and done. So on the good aspects of things, I would have to say that chemo and cancer has caused me to constantly search for self-improvement. For example, I have a tendency to read a lot of self-help books now, and it could also be the fact that I'm now in my 30s and I'm trying to turn my shit around. But it's something that I've noticed. I now engage in more things like yoga and meditation, because this whole experience has not only been physically draining, but it's also been extremely mental. I think a lot of what cancer is and dealing with cancer is, I would have to say, almost 80% mental. And then the 20% physical. So to get through it, I've done a lot of things like journaling and things of that nature. But as I'm realizing who I am and the way that I want to live my life from here on out, it's affected a lot of other things in my life as well, such as what kind of job I have. Right now, I don't necessarily have that one that I absolutely want, but I am on that search for doing what I truly want to do with my life, which is more so helping people rather than just the everyday grind that job provides. I find that I need more value and substance in my life in all aspects, within my job and in my personal life, and my family as well. As I was saying, I now live a healthier lifestyle. I exercise more. I try to at least exercise 5 days a week, and that is my choice, but there is a lot of research that has been said that goes hand in hand with doing exercise and preventing cancer in the future. I also drink less. And I've also changed the way that I drink too. And I don't mean water, I drink a lot more water now, but I drink alcohol less. I enjoy things like wine and beer, but I have a tendency to take out hard alcohol and lots of sugary drinks because those are things that cancer cells feed off of, and I don't need them. And then also I have chosen healthier eating habits. So I look to eating more fresh fruits and vegetables in my diet and taking out things like sugar. Not 100%, there's always life in moderation, and you can enjoy those great things such as holiday treats, but I don't consume them as much anymore. I've also noticed that my friendships have changed a lot. Yes, I have gained some friendships and I've lost some friendships, but now that I'm finding what's more important in my life, I also try to surround myself with the best people possible. I have seen that my moral compass has strengthened over the past few years, and things that I may have thought were okay just really aren't anymore, and I don't want to live that selfish type of lifestyle, and I don't want to surround myself with people that act that way either. So my friendships have definitely changed. And I also noticed that my relationships with my family have become stronger. They were the ones that were there for the majority of everything that I was going through, even though we were so far away. But I have definitely noticed that my relationships with them have grown and strengthened as well. And I've learned some weird things as well. Things that have surprised me along the way that I never even thought of. For example, which I think is extremely weird, is that specifically with Hodgkins lymphoma, I can never donate anything ever again. And I don't need the tons of clothes that I have in my closet, but I can never be a donor, so an organ donor. The only thing that I can donate from here on out is my hair, which I always thought was really important, and I was kind of saddened by, because as I stated earlier, I live my life to help people. That's just my personality, but that is one way that I can't do that anymore. So I found that interesting. But the difference is people with other cancers are actually able to do so and donate in the future after 5 years of going through treatment. But with Hodgkin's specifically, because it's a blood disorder, you're not able to. Also, I've learned that there could have been potential ways to prevent, in a way, my cancer. My cancer is most associated with the Epstein-Barr virus, which is more commonly known as mono, which is the kissing disease. You can't know who necessarily has mono, but I did a quick research study recently with about 300 people who have all had Hodgkin's, and I found that in that 300 people, there was almost 200 people that actually had the Epstein-Barr virus and had mono as well. So I found that really interesting. It kind of makes you think about the decisions that you make earlier in life when you're a kid too, and how that you could prevent that, or hopefully prevent that with other people in the future. So that's kind of my basis of how this whole process has affected me. Obviously, there's probably lots of questions about different ways and different things that it has, but that's the basic here and now of how my life has changed since being diagnosed. So let's end that. And let's go to open up the floor to some questions.
Janie, did you lose friends because of the cancer or because you were not doing the things that you would normally do with them?
Both, actually. I lost some friends that were just very uncomfortable with the situation, and I lost them almost for like a 2-year range. And I mean, I didn't have any animosity towards these people. I understand that some people just don't know how to interact with people that are sick, and it can be scary. But some of it is as well, we just don't live the same lifestyles anymore. I do find that at that time in my life, I was associated with the bar more because I was working, and that's where a lot of my friends were. But since then, I've disassociated myself with those people, and I've actually even recently disassociated myself with a couple of my really good friends, just because I've noticed that their values don't necessarily line up with mine, and I choose to not be around unhealthy people anymore. It's a waste of my time, honestly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Janie, have you heard there's a new drug on the market? Instead of taking chemo, they're now giving you a pill?
I haven't actually. I knew that there was forms of chemo that were offered in a pill, specifically with people, trying to think, not necessarily within lymph nodes, but like in their larynx area. I know that they've had that, but no, I did not know that. Do you know what it's made up of?
No, I don't, but I heard it on the news. They're still doing research on it, whereas instead of this 4 and 6 hour chemo, they're giving you one pill.
I mean, that would save a lot of time. And if it has better or the same effects, then that would be absolutely wonderful. Nobody wants to spend hours in the hospital.
So, given that you said that you gained and lost friends through everything, and even with you said that you suffered from even like a bit of PTSD after like the whole thing, would you encourage someone to find a counselor when dealing with Hodgkin's lymphoma or any other counselor or cancer rather, any other cancer?
Yeah, absolutely. It took me some time to get the courage to actually go see a counselor. I knew I needed to do it, but I had a few very good friends, and actually some of them were counseling psychologists. Obviously, I didn't go see them, but they knew it would be beneficial, and they knew that I was struggling with some things emotionally. I 100% recommend that everyone who's going through cancer go see a counselor. And luckily, most hospitals and cancer societies actually provide someone to talk to for free. It's just about going and doing it, which can be really hard and scary because, I mean, nobody wants to break down. But yeah, I definitely noticed that about 1.5 years after I had that, I needed to go see and talk to somebody because I was really struggling with my emotions and how I was dealing with everything. And I think the hardest time for me wasn't during cancer, it was afterwards.
Janie, has anyone come to you for counseling, or basically somebody might have just found out that they had cancer, maybe, since you've been in that position? Has anyone ever, and what do you tell them if that's the case?
Actually, I've had a lot. I have a YouTube channel called Jungle Janie. And through there, I have put on I have my first cancer treatment, and then I have some things where I make fun of cancer and make fun of being bald, such as the different ways you can tell people why you're bald and not having cancer. So, in essence, lie to them, but it gives you a little laugh. But yeah, I've actually had a lot of people reach out to me on my Facebook page and through YouTube with how to deal with certain situations. And for me, I'm actually really great at getting back to people. And I'll just allow a complete and open, honest conversation. if they want straightforward answers, I give them straightforward answers. If they want, a lot of it is, how do you feel during this situation, or what can I do to help this person that's going through this situation? I think I've probably connected with hundreds of people with that, but I've done the best I can to counsel people. And then if it's too much for me to handle, or if I feel like maybe my advice isn't completely correct, I try to guide them to seeing a counselor.
Your YouTube channel kind of like David Letterman, 10 ways to da 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 da.
Yeah.
Okay.
Janie, what about support groups? Maybe people that you know that you could form a group that could maybe help the person that's struggling too, that doesn't maybe want to go to a counselor but would feel more comfortable within a group. Have you ever done that or thought of that?
Yeah. As I've stated in a couple previous videos, I'm in this support group actually called, it's all about Hodgkins lymphoma. And today our topic of discussion was port removal. And somebody posted a video of themselves getting their port removed. They asked their doctor to wear a GoPro. And they're like, hey, if you ever wondered what it looked like when you got your port removed, like, this is what it has. And so there was people on there just being like, hey, my date's coming up on June, think of me while I get my port removed. I'm super excited to be done with chemo. And there's been people on there too that are like, hey, I don't feel like I can talk to anybody in my family. And I can't talk to like my husband about it, but they'll just go on there and spill their guts out. And some of it is, you know what, you just got to buck it up and get through it. But I mean, people are more than understanding to help with the situation when needed, when people are down. So I find that's been pretty fantastic. I'm on the end for the most part of giving advice rather than asking for advice, just because I'm so far through it. But it's nice to have that group of people there to listen when I need them to listen, and I'll give advice when they need it as well. So support groups are absolutely fantastic.
Okay.
I have a few questions.
Sure.
First one is, because Hodgkin's lymphoma tends to affect younger patients, that means when they get treatment and begin recovering, they have many more years of living than would a person with a different form of cancer, for instance. Mm-hmm. So are there risks associated with having that many years ahead of you, and being such a young cancer patient who's been treated with cancer at an early age? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Being a younger person and having gone through chemo, and other people that go through radiation as well, there are plenty of risks, and there's a lot of factors that you need to think about before you even go through the process. One of those being, do you want to have a family in the future? And that's a lot to take in for somebody that is 20, 23, 25 years old that maybe hasn't previously thought about it, but now they have to make choices of whether or not that is something that they want in their life, which goes hand in hand of the values that you have for your life as well. So as I was saying, my values changed. Well, yes, I did want to have a family in my future, and I still do. But it was making those choices ahead of time. Luckily, I didn't have to take any different drugs to do things like suppress the functionality of my uterus during that time. I'm absolutely fine, but there is the pain sickened that I might not have had to have children, or I might needed to have freeze my eggs. And I was in a newer relationship, and there was no way I was going to ask that guy to be my sperm donor to fertilize my eggs so they last longer. But that's the thing, that if I was in maybe a more significant relationship at the time, it could have been something that we thought about doing, regardless if we were at that point where we were engaged yet, but maybe it was something that was coming down the road. So yeah, that's one thing. And also there's a lot of different side effects that you have to deal with. People make fun of me all the time because I can't find the words for things. And it could be the simplest thing as what is a phone, to working with new coworkers and trying to learn the job and the lingo for it. And I have to work my way around because I still can't find the correct words for it. Not because I don't know them, but just because I miss them all the time. And so there's that embarrassment associated with that, because I feel like I'm sounding like a dumbass. I know exactly what I'm talking about, but the words aren't there. And that can last for years. It's 4 years out for me, and it's something that can last over 5 years. So it's learning about those challenges that are going to come up in your life, and how you can get around them in a professional setting as well. So there is a lot to think about and consider down the road. And then, of course, there's the constant stress of, is my cancer going to come back, and am I going to have to deal with this all over again? And now that I feel I have a better mental grasp on it, making that decision, if it does come back in the future, am I going to get treatment again? Do I want to go through all of this again? Am I going to have the same mental struggles that I did the first time around? Or is it going to be easier because I know what to expect? So there's all of that to take in consideration as well.
What would you tell someone who was newly diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma?
I would probably tell them it will be over before you know it, which is really true. And the importance of it is to focus on the here and now and getting through it. And that we can be in contact once it's all over with, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions after. But the one thing that is most important is taking care of yourself here and now, and focusing through this moment as it is, rather than worrying about the future so much. I mean, it's a powerhouse of everything being thrown at you at one time, and there's only so much that you can focus on. So focus on what's right in front of you.
Thank you.
Janie, back to something you said, and to answer the last question, or the previous question. You said you sometimes can't find the words. Is that a side effect of the treatment, you think?
100%. It is what you call chemo brain. It is a real thing. And yeah, I have troubles with word association sometimes. My friends and I the other day were talking about like Mardi Gras in New Orleans, and one of our friends was currently there, and I was joking saying that he should go see a voodoo witch, but I couldn't find the word for voodoo, so I'm running around being like, you know, the witchy lady with the bones and the chickens and things. And so they're like, you mean a voodoo like person? And I was like, yeah, that's exactly it. So yeah, it can just be in any situations, but I find myself like knowing that the word is there, but I'm like sitting there I have a lot of long pauses that'll happen. So chemo brain's a thing, and it really exists for me on an everyday basis.
Well, I have the same issue. I've never had chemo, but
it also happens with older age.
Yeah. So is it expected to go away eventually, or
so far, I mean, it gets better over time. I find that when I'm more stressed, it's more troubling for me. But it's pretty consistent and has been pretty consistent in the past 4 years. I feel like it's less, but it's a thing that affects me every week. I mean, it might not be a daily thing, but it definitely affects me often enough that it's noticeable, and people are like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, you don't get it. It's chemo brain. I know it's an excuse. It sounds like an excuse, but it's a real thing. And even my aunt who went through breast cancer, she used that for years too. She joked about it, but she was also getting older, so she wasn't exactly sure. But studies show it can be quite prevalent for people for up to 5 years.
So do the doctors or counselors, did they make you aware of this?
My doctors, not so much. It was more research that I did on my own. I mean, they did say that it could be a possibility, but it varies with every person. And it hasn't been until I've done research recently of why the hell is this still happening to me, that I've discovered that the length that it can last for. It's not something that comes up right away. It would have to be a question that you would have to ask your doctor. I mean, it's a good, which leads to keeping a journal of all the questions that you could possibly have with you. That way you can ask your doctor at that time to get those answers. But thankfully, we do have the power of the internet to get some of those nuances and questions answered as soon as possible.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
So Janie, sometimes when you're having those chemo brains, do you get upset? Do you get angry? Are you frustrated? How are you?
It usually kind of turns into a joke. I don't have a tendency to get too angry about it. It is annoying, but I think it was more frustrating at the beginning, and it's more frustrating in a work situation. But I mean, I know it's a part of my life, so I don't have a tendency to get angry about it. There's no point being angry about it. It's not going to fix it. So, like, just deal with it and get through the day.
Oh, okay.
I've got another question. How does Hodgkin's lymphoma affect your attitudes and behaviors on any given day? And you just mentioned how chemo brain might make you frustrated, but are there other times where you feel some other feeling other than frustration?
Yeah, I worry. I have a lot of worry. And I've said it before, where my worry comes into the closer time of diagnosis, where I start to get more stressed out if my cancer is coming back. There was another conversation that I had recently on Facebook about pain, and sometimes I feel pain in my arm where my scar tissue is, and I'm trying to think, is that lymph node pain? Is there something that's coming back? And my friends have noticed that I've been touching my arm a lot in that area. I also have been sick lately, but I've noticed that it's been swollen. So there's that paranoia that comes back. So since I've had that, I've made an appointment, and I'll have an appointment next week to talk with doctors and either alleviate that paranoia or go run a couple tests to alleviate that paranoia, or find out if there's actually something wrong. But I did note to them that, hey, this could be paranoia, but I would like to get it checked out. But then there's other symptoms that I've had too, like the itchiness has been back. I'm like, is that associated because the weather has been dry and changing all the time? Or is it because of this as well? So I don't know if I'm making things up in my head, or if it's real, and I can't tell by myself. So I'll need to see a doctor to actually get that settled. That's a constant thing for me around this time of year, that affects my life, and sometimes can be negative. And there's days where I'm stressed and I kind of want to cry about it, but I try to do things like meditate or journal to get through it during that time. All right, everyone. Do we have one last question before we end our session today? You don't have to. No? Okay. Well, thank you all for joining, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Monday. Enjoy your day.
Thank you.